common, is important, partly because of it is a source of income kan to the country, especially export. And of course, you need to know what are the drivers, and from there you know on the opportunity and so on. Okay, alright. So next we move on. Alright, the rationale behind the international trade is a comparative advantage proposed by David Ricardo. Kenapa bukan absolute advantage by Adam Smith? Why? I believe you have learned, right, in MDT 361 during your diploma, Intro to International Business. I'm not sure nama dia, but MDT 361. Okay, so dia ada banyak international trade theory, absolute advantage, comparative advantage. Kalau dulu kita panggil adalah satu teori tu memang paling lama lah. Mercantilism kan, mercantilism. They started out with mercantilism, absolute advantage, comparative advantage, Heckscher-Ohlin factor proportion. Kita ada product life cycle by Raymond Ferdinand, as well as kita ada apa lagi yang teori related to international business. Kita ada Hofstede. Kita ada Hofstede. Okay, so the theory of comparative advantage mention ataupun emphasize that dia illustrate during that time the international trade ataupun the import export should happen between countries because David Ricardo said that countries who have abundant resources should specialize, the keyword is specialization, should specialize in the production of materials ataupun resources that they have abundantly and sell it to those who are in need ataupun sell it out. So this is where export comes into picture. And at the same time, buying the materials, buying the product that they have scarce on. Maksudnya kalau dia dekat negara dia tu ada banyak that resources, the country should play an important role in making sure that companies focus and emphasize on the production of product on the resources yang dia ada abundantly. Macam kita ada rubber, kita ada palm oil kan, kita memang a major producer of the electrical appliances and so on, microchip processors and so on kan. So focus on that, specialize on that and export it out. Why? Because these abundant resources enables us to be efficient. Bila kita emphasize and focus on a certain thing yang kita ada speciality, over the years, over the learning curve tu kan, kita akan gain knowledge, kita akan gain experience, at the same time dia akan help us to minimum the cost. So bila kita export the product outside, produk tu kita akan jadi lebih competitive sebab kita boleh jual dia at the competitive price. Bukanlah lower price tapi still at the competitive price, isn't it? At the same time, bila kita dah export, there will be a portion of profit, right, from the export. So this is where the country or the company could buy material that we are lacking of. Nampak tak benda tu? So this is where the import comes into picture. Import and export. So David Ricardo punya idea ni, dia comes out because of there were flaws in the absolute advantage by Adam Smith. Adam Smith pun fokus on the specialization, tapi Adam Smith punya idea, dia kata okay, country should specialize in the production of material that they have abundantly untuk dapatkan efficiency. Itu je. So tapi dia tak cakap pun dia kena export, at the same time dia kena like macam David Ricardo kan, when you have that abundant resources, it enables you to sell out, and at the same time when the country willing to accept your product or willing to allow your product to be sold in their country, on the other hand, you also should openly and willingly open your country for them to sell their product in your country. Nampak tak benda tu? So it comes to the second statement, comparative advantage, emphasize that all countries benefit through open and fair international trade. Faham tak? Right? So that is open and international, fair international trade. Open means what? You should tell what can be export, what shouldn't be export. Macam tu. Kan? As Madam mentioned, so different country have different rules and regulation. So everyone should understand kalau barang tu tak boleh export kenapa and so on. Okay, fair means that if you allow them to export a certain product on a certain quantity, you should also willing to accept the company or country if they want to sell in your country with that much product or that type of product as well. Sama juga in terms of taxes and so on. Kalau you impose 8%, dia pun akan impose 8%. Janganlah like macam in international yang jadi unfair is because you nak export barang kat negara dia, you tax dia 8%, bila dia datang, you tax dia 10%. So yeah. So taxing sometimes depends on the type of product and the security and safety to the country as well, isn't it? The higher the risk to the safety and the security of the country, of course definitely the tax will be higher as well. Right, macam nuklear kan. So tax dia memang sangat tinggi. That's also. Okay, so what is absolutely necessary when import-export comes into picture under the idea of the comparative advantage? Yang penting kat sini is to make sure that the global trade tu is open and fair, can be carried out open and fair. So to be able to carry out open and fair international trade, kita perlukan rules yang transparent, predictable, stable. Kan, bukan saja rules or anything related to the import-export like macam standard, testification, inspection of the good, ke documentation ke, perlu open, perlu transparent so that company ke ataupun countries yang nak export ataupun nak import tu, they know. Alright, they have a clear picture of what they should do, what they shouldn't do, the cost associated to that activity and so on. Faham eh? So international trade would suffer if there is no stability, definitely kan. Changes kan. Change, uncertainty. Changes means uncertain lah. Uncertain means apa? Risk. Risk means cost. Kenapa? I mentioned before this, when there are too many risks, you're going to do a lot of things to make sure that the risk is minimum. So you akan gunalah pelbagai-bagai cara dan method untuk kurangkan risk tu. And then apa saja yang you buat tu akan melibatkan cost. Uncertainty. Change means risk. Risk means cost. Okay, next we move on to the General Agreement on Trade and Tariff. So this is basically the thing that I'm going to explain to you. When it comes to WTO, presiden dia adalah GATT. Okay, so you dah belajar kot GATT kan. So what is GATT? GATT is General Agreement on Trade and Tariff. Okay. So global international organisation dealing with the rules of trade between nations. So dia adalah organisation tapi dia adalah organisation yang unofficial. Macam tu. So bila dia unofficial, dia ada biasness and so on lah. So itulah dia punya flaws and so on. Ada lagi dia punya flaws nanti Madam highlight ya. So leading trading nations entered into GATT in 1947 and 1998. To ensure orderly and transparent international trade. Ada 2 point kat sini yang penting. Leading country. Siapa leading country? X allies dengan Y allies. Kalau you tengok US punya ally dengan European punya allies kan, country-country Japan, US, German. So itu semua adalah trading nations yang has been severely affected. The country that was severely disrupted during the World War II. So lepas World War II semua country ni dah hancur barai jahanam semua, so they need to think on how to redevelop the country back. You know, kan Japan been affected by the nuclear bomb and so on, macam US pun. Right, many countries have been affected severely. Even Malaysia pun that particular of time kan, Tanah Melayu and so on being affected so much from the World War II. And that point of time, this leading country, developed country, they thought of how can they redevelop the country. And to redevelop the country, they need a lot of money, investment kan untuk facilities, infrastructure, school, hospital will require a lot of money. So where the money comes from? They need to do business. So they cannot be self-sufficient anymore. So they need to rely, and most of the resources is basically comes from other country at that point of time. Kan nak redevelop the country kan, resources tu mungkin not available at India country, so they need to look from other country. So this is where the international trade or global trade exists at that point of time. Okay, so when they entered into GATT, before that they orang dah buat business with one another. Tapi when they saw that there are flaws kan, like macam banyak documentation, banyak restriction and so on, so they decided to form a treaty ataupun they decided to come up with agreement or organisation where this organisation or this agreement can oversee the global trade activity of the member country. Macam tu. Okay, so that's why when they agree to sign the GATT, basically they are looking forward that this organisation should be able to ensure orderly and transparent trade. To ensure the orderly and transparent trade, they come up with two principles. One is most favored nation, MFN, dan yang kedua adalah national treatment. Apa tu maksudnya dengan MFN, most favored nation? Most favored nation maksudnya kalau you tengok perkataan dia pun memang perkataan like macam very old school punya perkataan kan, dia punya statement, explanation even. Every signatory will extend to other signatory the same and equal treatment in this non-discriminatory manner. Ayat mudah dia, all member country should treat all member country should treat each other fair and square. Itu je sebenarnya dalam most favored nation. Kalau you treat US with 5% tax for example, you should also treat me with 5% tax juga untuk that particular product macam tu. You tak boleh lah US tu you bagi 5%, lepas tu bila ikan Malaysia nak export katalah you impose 7% to Malaysia. Why? Because Malaysia is not your preference country, bukan your favorite country or not your close neighboring partner macam tu. Cannot. Okay, so most favored nation means the way you treat country A should be the same you treat with you treat the country B. Itulah most favored nation regardless lah country tu poor ke rich ke and so on. Okay, national treatment. What does it mean by national treatment? The principle under national treatment requires that imported product should be treated alike with the domestically produced product. Maksudnya apa kat sini? Dulu, during that point of time, probably there are certain like macam practices lah untuk identify imported product, like macam letak stiker merah kat botol ke, ada specific packaging requirement for example, or this imported product being put in a specific space kan, untuk identify ataupun differentiate between the imported product and local product shouldn't. So based on GATT punya rules ataupun principles, member country cannot do that. So that is basically a discrimination to them. Right? So imported product should be put all together dengan domestic product and should be sell the same way lah how you sell the domestic product. So, faham tak? Ya, itu adalah dua prinsipal. Ada soalan tak so far?
So far tak ada,
madam.
Okay, good. So next, Madam nak explain on the objective. So what is the objective? What was the objective of the establishment of GATT during that time? Satu adalah to bring down tariff and non-tariff barriers. Tadi kan Madam highlight kan? Tax, kalau you nak pergi export, nak import, dia akan, country ni akan impose tax lah. Okay, so it is just that bila dia datang kepada tax tu, the issue is, or that tax is that consider high kan, ada certain tax tu is consider that lower and so on So but the objective is to bring down tariff because that point of time this is where they are making money kan. Tax tu kan adalah source of income, betul tak? Bila orang import, when product is being imported into your country, basically government akan impose tax kan over the imported product. So this is one of the income generation to the country. Macam tu. So adalah issue like macam the high tax and so on. Okay, so that's why the objective of GATT back then was to bring down tariff and non-tariff barriers. So what is the difference between tariff and non-tariff barriers? Tariff is clear cut lah, tax, duties that company has to pay when they import the goods into a certain country. Non-tariff barriers are other than tax. Itulah yang kita kata much of the hidden cost in the global trade comes from non-tariff barriers. For example, non-tariff barriers ni can come from quota, for example. Nanti Medan nak explain kenapa quota tu boleh jadi hidden cost. Documentation, for example. Medan explain kan kenapa documentation requirement tu can be hidden cost. Boleh discourage important exporter untuk export barang to other country. License, for example, requirement kan, license requirement. Because to some country, especially developing and less developed country, getting license will takes time. Time means money, isn't it? And also take to be able to get the license somehow. Some country charge you for that, isn't it? So that is basically non-tariff barriers that that likely increase the hidden cost in global trade. Faham tak? So ini adalah dua benda yang GATT try to minimize. Okay. So until 1994, the main concern of GATT were to check dumping and the unethical business practices. Dumping tu apa? Dumping tu maksudnya developed country yang dah develop like that at that point of time, macam US, Japan, German, country ni dah memang ada high advanced product, technology and so on. So when there is no more demand of that particular product, dia akan jual dekat less developed country at higher prices as well. So dah tak ada kan barang-barang yang tak ada demand kat developing country tu dijual dekat less developed country tu, which probably tak ada demand tu tapi dijual dengan harga yang mahal. That is dumping. Okay. Ataupun dijual dengan harga yang murah lah, ataupun barang tu is not going to be like macam it's not a prime important for that particular country tapi dijual. Alright, so that is dumping and also unethical business practices. Okay, so due to a flaws that Madam mentioned tadi, like macam buyers, the instability in terms of the tariff between countries, and also the sort of GATT ni is not a legal entity that supposed to like macam monitor ataupun coordinate the global trade among members. So that makes that member country demand to have the official institution, that help the legal provision. Boleh come up dengan policy, and members dalam tu yang discuss the committee, yang discuss the policy tu is really those who really been appointed ataupun voted for. That was the issue back then during GATT. Okay, so due to that issue, due to that reason, member country have discussed in a few rounds, in which the very last round was the Uruguay round. It takes years, kalau you tengok pun kan, daripada 1986 sampai 1994, almost 8 years kat situ, untuk discuss pasal the establishment of WTO, the legal provision, appointment and so on. Okay, and due to that, then on 1st January 1995, WTO, World Trade Organization, was officially established. So that's why the predecessor for WTO was GATT. So bukanlah dia come out dengan WTO and then they get rid altogether GATT tu, tak. Kalau you tengok kat situ, the establishment of WTO tu, nampak tak ayat dia with GATT. Maksud dia ada a certain element of GATT tu yang dia bring forward. Alright, so nanti Madam akan highlight dekat sini what is the difference between GATT dengan WTO. Apa benda yang dia improve lah for the penambahbaikan. Okay, so basically WTO agreements basically to facilitate producers of goods and services, importers, exporters to conduct their business at the global market at the world level. So whoever want to do global trade, they try to facilitate by looking at the rules, regulation yang transparent and fair to everyone. Kalau ada dispute between country kan, member countries, so yes, mana nak pergi WTO. Kalau dia berkaitan dengan trade, kalau macam contoh politik, macam Pulau Batu Putih between Malaysia dengan Singapore, tak bolehlah pergi dekat WTO kan. It's not something pasal trade. So they have to go to the International Court kat The Hague, Belanda. Alright, so that is the example lah, the difference. Okay, if GATT objective previously untuk bring down tariff, okay, and also non-tariff barriers, but WTO look at it a little bit different, which they believe and they understand that tariff tu adalah source of income to a country. So therefore, probably many countries around the world are trying to defend themselves from from lower down dia punya tax. Macam tu. Sama jugalah macam contoh agreement agriculture agreement tu kan. So dia lebih kurang 10 tahun jugalah kot ambil masa untuk establish the agreement in agriculture, simply because kita ada developed country developing dengan underdeveloped country. So, so since tax tu adalah source of income to the country, it's quite sensitive untuk push all the member country to agree on the certain tax yang been lowered. So it takes time lah. Tapi during that time, they still sit down and discuss untuk make sure member country around the world at the end of the day kena agree juga to lower down the tax. So since tariff tu adalah sensitive and source of income, so WTO twist it a bit, in which their aims adalah to remove non-tariff barriers. The justification simply because the non-tariff barriers ni is basically where the hidden cost increase ataupun contribute kepada the increased cost dalam global trade. Faham Okay, so and then barulah dia kata for the short run and then reduce tariff rate in the long run. That's why kalau dalam contoh agreement, agriculture agreement tu almost 10 years dia ambil masa